Hi, how are you? My name is Mary Ann Mormon, often known and most often known as Auntmama, and welcome to the inaugural launch, never been done before, live streaming, pass it on, special Friendsgiving edition. And welcome to the people who have come here. And we did start a few minutes late because, one, I'm Southern and I cannot tell time. And two, because, you know, people were trying to park and figure out where we are. And where we are is in the Winterblue Room in Seattle. And we're very grateful to be here. And the we part of that would be me. And since it's Friendsgiving and since it's a time to be thankful, and I'm sure those who are watching had a time to be thankful, I hope. One day there will be enough bounty for everyone to have a full Thanksgiving, I think. And one of the things I'm very thankful for is that I get to play and tell stories and be with the Go Janes. So that's part of my gift for doing this whole thing. It's a mutual thing. Because you know what? I've been doing stories and music for a long time, and they really get it. I mean, they boing. And so I've been following them around doing this. What we're going to do is spend about an hour, and we're going to have some stories, and we're going to have someone come up from the audience and begin a story, asking some questions and looking at the arc of a story. You all probably have stories. And you all probably spent a lot of time this weekend telling stories, right? Everybody's been telling stories. That's what we've been doing. That is because we are human beings, and that's what we do. Some people are fortunate, and they can sing their stories. Some people, there's one person in this audience who can make stories come out of puppets, and it's pretty phenomenal. Maybe sometime she will come to pass it on and pass that on. So we'd like to pass on some stories. We'd like to pass on some songs. And right now, I would like to pass on.
In the morning I walk out into the world walks into me. Through the brightening mirror of the sky, the scent of the fallen leaves, the gabble of gulls at the water's edge, the solemn gaze of the trees. In the morning I walk out into the world walks into me. In the morning I walk out into the world walks into me. Through the brightening mirror of the sky, the scent of the fallen leaves, the gabble of gulls at the water's edge, the solemn gaze of the trees. In the morning I walk out into the world walks into me. In the morning I walk out into the world walks into me.
My mama twirled around the kitchen, had that blue globe in her arms, bought with green stamps. The world. We have the whole world right at our fingertips. Mama had planned to see the world from her beloved Georgia go to the Eiffel Tower with her mother, maybe walk into the Globe and hear a little Shakespearean English with her father and mother. But life changed. Economies change. Wars come. People don't come home from war. Alcohol comes in. And one day my mother found herself living in a cold mountain town, which was not her choice of where she would like to be, dealing with dirty clothes, rambunctious children, a husband who worked too much. And yet, she was going to give the world to her children if she had to lick her tongue green. When the Globe came, my brothers rather liked it. My brother Ken would take onion skin paper and put it on there, and he would draw, and that would get him through history class and geography. He was very happy about that. My brother Shaq was going to be in international law and diplomacy, so he would study the Globe, so he really knew the world. What I liked about it was it spun on its axis, and I could just flip it around like that, and that was very entertaining and not what my mother had in mind at all. No, she was going to teach me the world, so we would sit at the kitchen table, and she walked me all the way through World War II. I went to Poland, I went through Warsaw, I came back through Germany. I was getting really tired of this Globe. Something needed to happen, and I figured it out. We had one of those closets underneath the stairs where everything broken. You have one of those kind of closets. There's no ladle on, there's no handle. There are Christmas ornaments that will not be hung. Broken everything. But that's where we kept our dirty clothes. Big basket. Now the importance of this is nobody particularly liked doing laundry because it was back in the wringer washer and then hang it on the clothesline days. So Mama could let that sit there longer than she would do most things. I took the Globe. I wrapped it up in dirty terry cloth. I put it in the bottom. I put all the dirty clothes on top of it. I thought I had this thing licked. But Mama was not so happy. Where is it? What happened to my Globe? Well, my brothers just looked at her like they had no idea. And she asked me, and me? So I was getting a little tired of this because every day she was down in the dumps about this Globe business, and I didn't mean to try to take it quite that far. Got into bed one night trying to push my feet down there underneath the covers, and something was down there. Held the covers up a little bit. Could sort of smell washcloths, towels. Then it held up a little bit more, and it smells like sulfur, eggs, and threw the covers back, and there were all the dirty clothes right in my bed. There wasn't anything I could do. It was the middle of the night, and so in the morning I gathered up all the dirty clothes, and I went in the kitchen, and Mama said, "Oh, there they are. I've been looking all over the place for the dirty clothes." She had the Globe on the table, too. I got to do laundry with Mother for about a week, and outside we're pinning up with the old clothespins, and she's telling me, what goes around comes around, because the world is round. The way she said it, I looked at her, and I wondered, did she really see the world in the eyes of those babies? Or would she rather have been out there discovering it for herself?
Hey mama, oh sweet mama, I promise you I ate the peas, ate them all, I aimed to please. Ooh child, my sweet child, hand over the potatoes, I know where all the peas go. Why you think I didn't know this ain't my first rodeo? Hey mama, oh sweet mama, what about the cookie jar? It wasn't me that put it out. Ooh child, nice and slow. Just in case you didn't know, this ain't my first rodeo. You gotta saddle up and stare 'em down. It ain't just luck, oh, you need the clowns. Keep it nice and steady, it's all about the flow. You never see me sweat, see, this ain't my first rodeo.
When I was little, I would bounce down the stairs and I'd run to the big black and white box TV and switch on Uncle Irving Sharp playing the Wurlitzer piano. Brought to you by the Dr. Pepper Bottling Company, 10, 2, and 4, Dr. Pepper. I love this show because it had flat and score. You like that? Yeah. You want to know the Dr. Pepper song? Have I ever sung you the Dr. Pepper?
No, I do.
Want to know the Dr.
Yes.
Dr. Pepper is a friendly pepper-upper, and it never, never, never lets you down. Dr. Pepper is a friendly pepper-upper, and it never, ever, ever lets you down. 10, 2, and 4.
Very nice. Very nice.
That means you're supposed to drink Dr. Pepper at 10, and which we did. It was a sugar kind of thing. Mama would have rather I was watching Cole Porter. I was watching Porter Wagner. And that's why I loved Uncle Irving's show. And I'd sing along, bouncing up and down on the green fuzzy. And I loved everybody who came, but the person I loved the most was Roy Rogers. I loved his smile, loved his hat, loved Trigger. And so when Uncle Irving said that Roy Rogers was coming to open the rodeo, I was all ears. And then when I learned that there was going to be a contest and the child that collected the most Dr. Pepper bottle caps was going to meet Roy Rogers at the rodeo, I was all set. Now, Mama explained to me that I was really young and this is not going to be possible. There would be older children, which is exactly what I needed to go double down on collecting bottle caps. My first strategy was up to Weaver's grocery store on the corner, and he would get the coins out of the Dr. Pepper machine, and then he'd empty out the caps. So I was there with my little brown lunch bag, remember those? And get the caps. Oh, Wardy Ward from up the street knocked into my business there, and then the big kids started coming, so I had a door-to-door campaign. I'd go up and down the streets asking people to buy Dr. Pepper and could I please have the bottle caps. My mother was mortified that I was out being obnoxious with the neighbors. Daddy thought it was funny until he found out that I had asked the preacher to collect bottle caps in the collection plate. And he said, "Buttons, you cannot involve the Lord in this contest." Well, I was busy. I then started going out to the alley, and every week Dale and Roy were going after robbers. They were into the bank stopping. They were getting the rustlers, and then they were going out over at the sunset singing that song that Dale Evans wrote for Roy Rogers.
Happy trails to you until you meet again. Happy trails to you.
So I thought if I collected all these bottle caps and I got to meet Roy Rogers, maybe I could join him and go, after the rustlers and the bank robbers and everything. So I'm going down the alley and I'm looking to see where the garbage cans have turned over, and Daddy comes home and I'm watching the banana goop off of the bottle caps, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I explained it to him. He said, "You are too young. You cannot possibly get this. You are my mule-headed child. Just my mule-headed child." I didn't want to tell him that maybe I could go off with Roy and Dale. My parents were so happy the day that we took all the bottle caps down to Uncle Irv, They thought that might be the end of it, but no, we had to see who won the contest. And they strung this out as long as possible because you know what they were doing. I didn't know what they were doing, but every day I'd watch and Uncle Irv would say, we're going to announce the child that's won the contest. We're going to announce it. And then one day he said, tomorrow is the day we're going to announce the contest. So I'm bouncing up and down on the green fuzzy sofa, and Mama's sitting next to me trying to, take care of me. She really hates listening to this music, but she's there with me. After the next commercial, we're going to make the announcement. I'm waiting. And they call out the name of some stinky little kid in Benton, Virginia. I was so mad, I wouldn't even watch the Roy Rogers show that week, and my father didn't like that. He said I was being a sore loser, and no child of his was going to be a sore loser. So he made me write a thank you letter to Uncle Irv for the contest. It was like putting salt into my heart. Until the call came. The big black phone in the hallway rang, and Mama picked it up, and I heard her say, why, yes, Uncle Irv. That got my attention. Why, thank you very much. What's he want, Mama? She's trying to get me away. Uncle Irv, that's very nice. I'm sure she'd be interested. What am I interested in, Mama? What am I interested in? Mama. Yes, we'll get her there. Thank you very much. Well, what happened was the Dr. Pepper Company decided it would be nice to have a girl and a boy on the stage for the rodeo to meet Roy Rogers. And since I had collected all those bottle caps and written that very nice thank you letter, it got to be me. I got on my Sears Roebuck Roy Rogers hat, my double holsters from Roy Rogers. Daddy takes me out to the first rodeo I'd ever been to. And there, up in the bleachers, there's this big stand where they have a television camera back in the days when those were that big. And Roy was there drinking Dr. Pepper. Uncle Irv was there. Stinky little kid from Vinton was there, too. And some scrawny guy with a neck about the size of a pencil pulled me over up onto the stage, and Daddy had to wait for me. And then they called out the names of the winners, and Roy reaches over, his Dr. Pepper in his left hand, goes across, shakes hands with the winners, kept looking at that camera, never looked at any of us. He was a little shorter than my father. All of a sudden, I thought this didn't work out so well. Scrawny guy gets us off. Clowns are trying to get the cowboys to be safe. I'm waiting. I said, Daddy, just let me see if I can talk to him. And I couldn't because they got him out and Roy Rogers was gone. Daddy could see the disappointment just kind of rolling down my face. I thought I might cry. I felt like I'd been to the dentist instead of getting to meet Roy Rogers. So he kneels down, and he says, Buttons, this is not going to be your last rodeo. You're my mule-headed child, and I'm proud of you. You keep doing your best, and you're going to be okay. And then he sang,
Along the way, we figured that those were the only lyrics we knew of that song. So this next song was kind of inspired somewhat by the Me Too movement. I was sort of, you get to thinking about your own girlhood and all the kinds of
injustices and such. And I was remembering when I was a kid, a lot of us, it's kind of similar age in here. A lot of us used to watch the Ed Sullivan Show and the Johnny Carson Show, where there were often magicians, remember? And the magician was always male, and the woman who he would saw in half was always female. And you know, I tell young women that this was like actually legal back then. You know, you could be watching that when you're 8 years old at home and wondering. So I was wondering, like, what happened to all those women who were sawn in half. So this is from their perspective. Okay. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. The man in the cape, the magician, ran off as the last clapping died. But nobody knew when the magic was through what to do with this new tribe of brides. 'Cause half of us are talkers and half just walk away, and half of us can promise you that half of us will stay. Nobody said it'd be easy, but I think we were led to infer that if we climbed into the box on our own, we'd climb out the same as we were. Now part of me can leave you as part stays by your side. Part will vanish in the crowd, the rest will be your bride. Maybe half of every woman gets into it over her head. I'll need you to help to arrange me somehow in a comfortable way on the bed. Now part of me can leave you as part stays by your side. Part will vanish in the crowd, the rest will be your bride. Part of me remembers while part gets thinking all wrong. See how the doves turned out to be scarves after the magic was gone. Now part of me is with you while part walks out alone. You know I'd give you all my love if that were possible. You know I'd give you all my love if that were practical.
One dime, 2 nickels, 10 coppers, all you need. Step right up to the freak show. It was at the Midway. It would have a bearded lady. Every year the fair would come to town. There'd be some guy who could take a sword all the way through his throat. And there would be a magician who would be chopping some very beautiful lady in half, and I presume putting her back together again. But I never got to see that part because Mama would not let me go into that show. It was just not suitable. But there was another mother and daughter standing outside the fair who wanted to come in very much. They didn't have the money, and they were black, and I don't think black people could come to the fair at that time. Her name was Harriet Muse. Daughter's name was Mary Bell. Harriet and her family were sharecroppers up in TrueVine, Virginia. That's in Franklin County, Virginia. And she wanted to come to the fair because she thought maybe she had 2 children there. See, Harriet and her husband, happy people, smart people, had their firstborn child, George. And George is unusual, and Then came William. William was unusual because these two African children had luminescent milk white skin and eyes that were white and red rimmed. Mary Bell came along, she had the same gene. They were albino. And it happens, about 1 every 10,000 Africans might have albino genes. Well, they were tortured when they went to school. Black kids didn't want to be with them, and white people said terrible things to them. So Harriet tried to keep William and George close at hand and picking tobacco at home. Mary Bell got to go to school, and somehow they gave her a little less trouble. So she learned a little bit. She learned a little about how to read and write. And the boys picked tobacco. They had to be all wrapped up because their skin would burn. And Harriet took these great big claws and kerchiefs and put it over them and made them stay close by her. But one hot day, they kept getting a little further away, picking tobacco a little further away, and they could hear a creek. They could hear it babbling, and they thought, wouldn't this be nice to get cooled off in a creek? And so they start sliding down there, and they can hear it. And just by the time they're ready to put that toe right into the creek, off come the kerchiefs of their hats. And they look up, and there's a tall, skinny man there with dollar signs in his eyes. The story gets a little confusing at this point. My father learned it from the railroad, and never quite sure exactly what happened. But that night, George and William were on a train going to Wisconsin, which is where Barnum and Bailey's circus trained their new acts. They were given costumes to wear, and they were in the freak show with Barker calling out, "See the freaks! 1 dime, 2 nickels, 10 coppers. See the darkest African white savages eating raw meat." They were renamed Eco and Iko, and they were put in cages, and they did eat raw meat, and they did hold each other close at night, and they cried, and they missed their mama something terrible. And their owners would say, "Get over it. Your mother's dead. You're never going to say that again. You're never going to see her again." And they would go from town to town, probably passing close by TrueVine in between the Northeast and going down to Florida. Harriet didn't know. Mary Bell got older, and she'd say, Mama, we got to go. We got to go find them. We can't stay here. My brothers, it's your son." Harriet had no money. Harriet couldn't read, couldn't write, neither could her husband. Mary Bell kept saying, Mama, we got to go. Well, one day, when Mary Bell was on her way home, the train went by, and she came running and saw Barnum and Bailey written right on the side of that train, and there was a train car, and there was a woman who was balancing on a seat, and there was a guy with barbells, and then in the next car, it was open so you could see the elephant trunks coming out, and then right at the end of the train, there were conjoined twins. There was a lady with a very long beard. There was a tall, skinny man, and pressed up against the window were 2 boys staring out like their life might be out there somewhere. And she was sure that was William and George. She ran home, Mama, we gotta go find them. Mary Bell was old enough now. She talked to the preacher, and the preacher found a white lawyer who had been known to help black people. And he started looking. And he found this picture of Eco and Iko and showed it to Harriet, and she said, yes, that's George, that's William. Mr. Martin, the lawyer, found Barnum and Bailey, talked to them. They said, they're ours. We bought them. You cannot have them back. But he did get them to be able to go home and at least see their mother, and they were so happy. But Barnum and Bailey sent someone there to be sure they got taken back to the circus. Mama, we have to go. We have to get them back. Mr. Martin kept on the case, get through Variety, get through the magazines, get through the ads. He went to Washington, D.C. He met with the lawyers, and you know, he got William and George. He got back pay for them. They went back to TrueVine. and 2 50-year-old men were home at last.
Fist curls up in anger, a word lands like a blow, a glance thrust like a dagger, love retreats like shadow, the promise to protect you are the words of a lover, not the one who's above you. And you wait to recover. Should you go, mama, go? Should you stay, mama, stay? I don't know, mama, no. It's not for me to say. It's not for me to say. It's the thing you least expect. It's the tightening of the pull. It's the creeping disrespect and the glass that's never full. In the dim light of reflection, a whisper from the mirror, a desperate, strangled question. Who will be my savior? Should you go, mama, go? Should you stay, mama, stay? I don't know, mama, no. It's not for me to say. It's not for me to say. But if you ever cross that border, if you ever cross that line, I'll believe you when the bullies and the bad men fume and lie. If not through cruel coercion, but a choice you fully own, may strength be yours in portion as you heal your heart and home. Should you go, mama, go? Should you stay, mama, stay? I don't know, mama, no. It's not for me to say. It's not for me to say. Just outside your door, or it might be true compassion that overcomes and conquers. Should you go, mama, go? Should you stay, mama, stay? I don't know, mama, no. It's not for me to say. It's not for me to say.
So when I hear them, I hear a story. Does that make you hear a story? Does that make you hear a story at home? Where do you hear the story? Where does it come from? How do you get it?
To
just little bits and pieces that are kind of floating around in the air, and you just grab one that seems sticky, and then you throw it in the ground and you let it germinate, turns into something different for everyone.
Have you ever thrown anything in the ground that was sticky that came up like that? All my life I've wanted to find that seed, and I haven't been able to do it. But let's take, no, actually, it's going to be a little different.
All right.
Because it's time to hear from someone in the audience.
Oh, excellent.
Is it excellent? All right. So we're going to give the Go Giants a break for just a second, or 10 minutes, because repeat, I'm Southern and can't tell time. But if you're there and you're out there, you can send us a note and let us know if you're telling time or if there's any story you'd like to hear. But in the meantime, we would like our volunteer to come and join me. Would you do that? And please, let's give a little applause for this very brave human being.
Yes. This is my first rodeo.
All right, this is his first rodeo, and your name is?
My name's Steve.
Steve.
Steve. I'm from Seattle. I was born on May 17th, 1954. That'll be significant later.
All right, that's significant. 1954, born in Seattle. And I asked Steve, or I asked anyone, did you have a story? Do you ever have a story that you might want to tell? And he had a story he might want to tell at some point. So
A lot of
this
stories.
story. Okay, well, this is one.
Yeah.
One. You know, you can only put so much food in your mouth at one time, although yesterday you probably tried to. You can only put one story out at a time.
Right.
So there's someone who's significant in the story. There's someone that's important to you. And where does the story take place?
In school, Seattle.
Okay.
Elementary.
All right, so
First grade.
if you're at home and you're doing this, or if you're sitting here and you're doing this, you got a place, and you got something that's important to you, and you have a feeling. Did you have a feeling for this person?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you're in the first grade, and you're in Seattle.
In Seattle.
And
in the beloved neighborhood of Madrona.
In the Madrona neighborhood,
The
if you happen to be in the
beloved
Northwest. If you do not happen to be in the Northwest, think of it as lovely, nearby lake, and diverse.
Very diverse.
Very
So, yeah.
Very
Very
diverse. Very diverse. Okay, you got this in mind?
Yeah.
All right. So
So-
let's start. Just start with there, and then something's going to happen. Something needs to happen.
Yeah.
Tell us what. Tell us who. Tell us what. Tell us where. Tell us what.
I'm in my class, and the teacher mentions Thurgood Marshall, and so later on, after school, I go and look him up because my parents bought a Encyclopedia Britannica because I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and I have lots of questions, and so they couldn't answer all my questions, so they had to bring in these books, and it was for all of us. And so I looked them up. I found out that Brown versus Board of Education happened on my birthday, which desegregated the schools. And in my neighborhood, it meant busing kids out because we were all congregated in the Central District. And people migrated here because of jobs and stuff. But getting back to the story, Thurgood Marshall was a very important person, and I found him, and I read up on, I was still learning how to read, actually. But I became interested in following history and pursuing that because.
Okay, so that's the beginning of the story,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
All right, now let me. Can I touch you?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man in yellow hat. We're going to
Yeah.
redefine man in yellow hat. So right here, this somewhere toward your heart.
Mm-hmm.
What did you feel when you learned about Thurgood Marshall?
A sense of pride. Someone who was working at. He was a lawyer. He was working at issues that needed to be covered. There was so much to learn as a child, and I was pretty clear about what was going on, that something was wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, would you keep working on the story, and would you now go as you work on it? What was wrong, and what did Mr. Marshall do to help make it right? And we're not going to do that today.
Okay.
But would you come back and
I
tell
would
the story again?
Definitely.
And make it. All right. So
Fill it out.
You fill it out. So you got who it's about.
Yeah.
You know where it takes place.
Right.
You got your story out there. Who it's about. Where it takes place.
It's exciting.
It's exciting.
This won't be my first rodeo next time.
All right. Thank you, Rick. That does take a bit of courage too. The first rodeo, right? So let's bring the Grow Janes back. And tell us where the inspiration to this next song came from.
So, on the corner by my house, there's a cut-off shrub by my neighbor's porch, and I noticed that some days, and it looks like a squirrel, actually. When you see it from one particular angle, it looks like a squirrel. And I noticed that some days when I walk by this stump, it looks like a squirrel holding an offering up to the sky. And other days when I walk by, it looks like a squirrel with a hatchet. And I always think, that's a little interesting insight into my mind of the moment. So this is kind of a song about that. It's called Soul Spring. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Does the water restore your heart? Does it fill you up at the center so that something of your essence flows out to this thirsty world? So that something of your essence flows out to this thirsty world. Where do you go to find the spring where your soul drinks deep? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet? Tell me, is the water there bitter or sweet?
was 28 years old before I bought my first clothes. It was not because I didn't want to buy my clothes. It was that my mother had bought them all for me because she had all of these boys and all the boy cousins and the brothers, and now she had a baby doll to dress. And so she dressed me in these things that hurt my arms and sachets that were just gonna come undone when you played kindergarten and kickball and dodgeball and all that thing. The law was on her side. I had to wear skirts. Remember that? Had to. Girls couldn't wear pants. We eventually had some compromise. I had a tennis skirt. She bought me a pair of jeans. She continued to buy my clothes through high school. She sent me boxes in college. When I got married, she picked out my dress and my bridesmaids' dresses. Well, I finished school. I had to find a job. And I thought maybe a newspaper would be good. There's going to be a problem with this because I couldn't type. I couldn't type because I didn't take typing, because if I took typing, I might turn into a secretary, and that's what Mama did, and I did not want to do anything that Mama did. But I had 2 fingers, sometimes 3, got a little pinky in there. Went on down to the newspaper, and they sent me to the women's department, of course. And I met with the eponymous Mrs. Stone, who sent me to do a typing test because you had to pass the typing test before you could get hired. And I explained to her that this was a bit of a problem, and she explained to me that I was to go sit over there and see what you can do. So I did the best I could, and I gave it back to her, and she went, we can make something out of you. Come in on Monday. We need a fashion editor. My mother was overjoyed. The clothes kept coming and coming. And in the fall, Mrs. Stone told me that I was going to the Hoot Couture show. I did not know what Hoot Couture meant. But off I go to New York, and I see all these people sitting by the runway, and they're all writing things down like it's important. And I'm just sort of copying whatever they're writing, and there goes Armandi down the runway. And then goes the House of Givenchy down the runway. And then it's going to be vented double for the season. Hems are up, and here goes Givenchy back down the runway. And we're going to have Calvin Klein cut on the bias a little fuller this year. I didn't know what the bias was, what was good about Fuller, what was good about Nara. I wrote whatever they wrote. They published it. Back at the newspaper, they all thought it was exciting, and what did I buy? They wanted to know what I bought. I said I bought nothing. They said, what? The designers always give discounts to the fashion editors, and you can get all of these great clothes. I later learned this was bribery, or what we might call quid quo pro. I explained to Mrs. Stone that I did not buy my clothes, and she told me that was not true, which would because she, as I said, the eponymous Mrs. Stone. And I said, no, my mother sends me all of my clothes. Not all of them. So I asked Mama to send the next clothes to the newspaper office. Halloween was coming up, and she liked to theme dress me. And even though that's the devil's holiday, I knew something was going to be coming. And it did. The first box arrives. It's got orange blouses, an orange vest, and a pair of orange and green Harlequin print slacks. The second box comes, and it's full of shoes, a patent leather orange pocketbook, and hose of an appropriately orange nature. The third box shows up, and it's got all of the Vanity Fair and the orange slip, and just for a little accent, there would be coral-colored nail polish with a lovely coral lipstick to go with it. Well, this was all very funny, although as a child, it made me sad. But when Mama passed on and went to costume the other side, I was in big trouble. I'd never bought my own clothes. I was out of shoes. I go to the shoe store and the guy says, appropriately, "What size shoe do you wear?" I didn't have a smack-kadab idea what size shoe I wore. I hadn't known my own size since I stuck up my little patent leather foot and somebody told me. Every once in a while I look on those shelves, see what's there. There's the purple velvet silhouetted pantsuit that I wish I could still fit into. But my favorite is the orange and green Harlequin bell-bottom pants as wide as Niagara Falls.
I got some 6-inch heels. Wait. I know what I have. I got some platform shoes with some 6-inch heels and a skin-tight dress with some sex appeal. I got a little red shirt with a low-cut top and a whole lot of bling and a bottom crop. I got a paisley skirt with a comfort waist and a tunic top and a little bit of lace. I got designer jeans and some Birkenstocks. Got a Chico tank and some chartreuse crocs.
Dennis, where'd you get that perfect dress? And look at me, I'm such a mess. And where'd you find those perfect shoes? And look at mine, my shoes are used. And where'd you find the perfect hair? Oh, it fell out. Well, I don't care, 'cause I'm not wearing that. I'm not wearing that. Oh, cats don't grow, chicks don't know, chance don't know, that don't go. News just blows and hell don't snow. You don't yodel and I'm not wearing that. How about I buy you a drink? How about you be a good girl? How about you just bend low? How about you give it a whirl? How about you step aside? How about you just sashay? How about a full-time job with some half-time pay? Oh, once I had a pretty skirt and wore my pretty skirt to work, but then there were some overtures all underscored by perfect jerks. So what's the use of pretty skirts? What's the use of perfect jerks? 'Cause I'm not wearing that. I'm not wearing that. Oh, cats don't grow, chicks don't know, chance don't know, that don't go. News just blows and hell don't snow. You don't yodel and I'm not wearing that. Oh, yodel, yodel, A-E-O, yodel, yodel, A-E-O. I got a sprinkle of gray on the top of my head, but the brain inside is still not dead. And if you need some skin to figure what I'm worth, I got an elbow I can show you with an angular curve. Oh, let me tell you where it's at, 'cause I'm gonna grab a pussy hat. Oh, then I'll walk a pretty mile, a perfect mile in pussy hats. Party dresses, party smiles, 10 million bright pink party hats. I'm gonna wear that. That's what I'm gonna wear. I'm gonna wear that. I'm gonna wear that. I'm gonna wear that. I'm gonna wear that. Oh, the lady, oh, the lady, oh, the lady. Ooh, ooh, lady, oh, the lady, oh, the lady. Ooh, ooh, lady, oh, the lady, oh, the lady. 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 Lady, oh, the lady, oh, the lady. Ooh.
Roanoke, Virginia, there was a little yodeling there, but Roanoke was built to build trains out of the Norfolk and southern Norfolk and western shops to take the coal out of West Virginia into a building world. My father loved those trains, and my mama told time and music. As soon as that 5 o'clock whistle blows, drop it and come home for dinner, she'd say. Balls, bats, books dropped faster than a virgin's nightgown when that whistle blew, and we ran home. The peanut train to Suffolk called us to homework, and my brothers went to their rooms to do their appropriate work, probably use that daggone globe. I crawled off to my room, turned on my little radio, listened to Woody Guthrie, Patsy Cline. My mother could hear a shadow crawl. She was yelling at me down the hallway, "You best be in there doing your homework if you wish something good to happen to your life." Good meant that I should be listening to Cole Porter instead of Porter Wagner, trying to aspire to do something besides living in a railroad town. And she was just about to get to my door when Daddy came, and I heard him stop her outside, and he said, I'll go teach her some math. Daddy redeemed me a lot, and I didn't waste any time following his big old legs down to the railroad crossing. And he taught me how to count. 1, 2, 3. See that big coal car? Just came out of the railroad roundhouse today. And the big blue Baltimore, Ohio, that's going on up there with paper. 6, 7, 8. Oh, look at that steam engine. It was a black river going up through the tunnel, and over the top was a gray circle curling back. And then there was the train that was full of milk, refrigerated train, headed out to the west somewhere. And there was a flat car. It was going to Detroit and bring back Ford cars, Daddy told me. He said, look at this hard, because when you grow up, it won't be like this. I couldn't imagine what he was talking about. He said, steam locomotives. They're going away. We're going to have diesel. I didn't know what that meant, but not having a clang-clang, not having a whistle, not having those beautiful sounds. We went on home, and I could see Daddy not looking so happy, and we were singing, this train is bound for glory on the way, and Mama heard us, and she was at her upright. She played this train for us. We sang till it was bedtime. Well, Daddy's prediction came true, didn't it? Steam engines are gone. We have diesel. And a lot of those cars are gone because trucks, 18-wheelers, carry those goods. But Mama got some of her wishes. One by one, her children left to go find a better life. But I take back roads every time I can. And I love to hear the clickety-clack of Amtrak coming down those tracks. I count cars. Just the way Daddy taught me. When we told time by a whistle and found redemption in a song.
to the light, to the light. The light returns again. Courage finds a way to rise. Kindness can answer pain. World turning to the light, to the light. The light returns again. World turning to the light, to the light. The light returns again. World turning to the light, to the light. The light returns again.
There is hope. There will be light. It will come back. The Go James will bring it. Thank you for switching and clicking on. Thanks to the Winterblue Room. And thanks to you for coming to join us for a little tale and song from our neck of the woods. Goodbye now.